The courtroom was quiet, too quiet. Daniel Reed, one of the city's top lawyers, stepped inside, fixing his tie and checking his watch. He hated being late, but this case was small. Just another girl, another file, another story. His assistant, Claire, met him near the wooden benches. "She's already here," she whispered. "Young, quiet, doesn't say much. Should be quick." Daniel nodded without looking up. He had seen hundreds like her. Broken eyes, bruised voices, and the same sentence on repeat. "I didn't do it." He walked to his seat, opened his briefcase, and glanced at the file. Name, Mira Lane, age, 21. Charge, attempted theft, status, no family, no job, no lawyer. Daniel sighed. "Just another case." The judge entered. Everyone stood. Mira sat quietly at the defense table, eyes lowered, hands folded like a child waiting for permission to speak. She looked too calm. Daniel sat beside her and whispered, "Mira, I'm Daniel. I'm your court-assigned lawyer. Don't worry, I'll speak for you. We'll get through this." But Mira didn't look at him. Instead, she whispered something that made Daniel pause. "Please don't lie for me." He blinked. "What?" I said, she repeated, her voice steady. "Don't lie for me." Daniel leaned back, confused. Most clients begged him to lie, to twist the truth, to find an easy way out, but not her. Before he could say anything, the judge began. The officer explained what happened. Mira was found in the back room of a closed pharmacy. Nothing was taken, but she had a small knife. No threats, no damage, but enough to arrest her. "She didn't resist," the officer said. "She just stood there." Daniel looked at Mira. "Why were you there?" he whispered. She stayed silent. The judge turned to Daniel. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Reed?" Daniel stood. "Your Honor, my client is willing to cooperate. I'd like to request 1 week to speak with her and gather more information." The judge nodded. "Fine, 1 week. Next hearing, Monday morning. Don't waste the court's time." As the judge banged the gavel, Mira stood slowly. Daniel packed up his things, still unsure what just happened. "Mira," he said as they walked out, "I need to understand what's going on. Why were you in that store?" Mira finally looked at him. Her eyes were deep and tired, but not afraid. "I wasn't stealing," she said softly. "Then why go there?" She looked away. "To remember something." "Remember what?" But she didn't answer. Outside the courthouse, Daniel called Claire. "Find everything you can about Mira Lane," he said. "Family, school, past jobs, anything." Claire replied, "There's barely anything. No parents listed, no criminal history, no records before age 15. "That's not possible." "Well, maybe she's hiding something." Daniel looked back at the court steps. Mira was gone. That night, Daniel sat at his desk going through Mira's thin file. It felt strange. Most cases had long reports, interviews, background checks. Mira's file was just 5 pages. 1 page was the arrest report. 2 pages were police notes. 1 was her birth certificate. And the last was blank. He stared at the birth certificate again. Born, August 10th. Place, unknown. Mother, unknown. Father, unknown. He flipped the file shut. Just then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Daniel answered. "Hello?" A deep voice whispered on the other end. "Leave her alone!" Click. The line went dead. Daniel stood still, heart pounding. Who was that? Why didn't Mira want help? Why did someone want him to stop? He sat down again, replaying Mira's words in his head. Please don't lie for me. Something about her voice. It wasn't scared. It wasn't angry. It was calm. Too calm for someone accused of a crime. The next day, Daniel visited the holding center where Mira was staying. She sat behind the glass, her hands in her lap, wearing a gray shirt too big for her small frame. He picked up the phone. "Why did someone call me last night and tell me to leave you alone?" Mira looked at him. "I told you. she said. Some stories are better left untold. Daniel frowned. You do realize you could go to jail? She nodded. I know. Then help me help you. She leaned forward. If you knew what I've seen, she said slowly, you wouldn't call this a case. Then she stood up and walked away. Daniel sat there, the phone still in his hand. Back at his office, Claire handed him a printout. I found one thing, she said. A burned orphanage. Mira's name was on the list of survivors from 10 years ago. That's all. Daniel took the paper. The headline read, Fire destroys Haven Hill, home for girls. 3 dead, 5 missing. And under it, a photo of young children, one of them circled in red. It was Mira. Her eyes looked the same even back then, empty, yet full of something he couldn't name. Daniel closed the file, staring out the window. This wasn't just another case. This girl, this Mira, was hiding a truth so painful. She'd rather go to jail than speak it out loud. But something inside Daniel had shifted. For the first time in years, a client had made him feel something. He didn't know what it was yet, but it scared him. Daniel Reed stared at Mira's file again. It didn't make sense. A girl with no address, no school records, no family contacts, just one burned orphanage from years ago. He ran a hand through his hair and whispered, Who are you, Mira? The next morning, Daniel drove to the address listed on her birth certificate. It was supposed to be her old home. But when he got there, all he saw was an empty lot covered in weeds and broken glass. A sign said, Property condemned, no trespassing. He got out of the car and looked around. An old woman sitting on a nearby bench watched him carefully. Excuse me, Daniel called out. Did someone used to live here? The woman nodded slowly. That was Haven Hill. Orphan girls stayed there, burned down long ago. Do you know Mira Lane? The woman's eyes narrowed. Why you asking about that child? I'm her lawyer. The woman looked away. Poor thing, she whispered. She was the quiet one. Never cried, even when the fire happened. She didn't scream. Just walked out, holding another girl in her arms. Daniel blinked. She saved someone? The woman nodded again. But after that night, she changed. Stop talking. Some said she saw things in that fire. Things that should have died long ago. Daniel felt a chill down his spine. Do you know where she went after that? The woman shrugged. The place shut down. The girls scattered. Some got adopted. Some disappeared. Mira, she vanished. Back at his office, Claire had pulled more. Files. I searched all court records, schools, and hospitals in her name, she said. Nothing before age 15, but I found this. She handed him a police report from 6 years ago. Missing girl found outside hospital. No memory of past. The report said the girl gave her name as Mira Lane, but had no ID, no parents, and refused to speak about where she came from. Daniel read the notes carefully. A doctor had written, PTSD likely, trauma signs, girl may be hiding from someone dangerous. Claire pointed at the bottom. But look here, no follow-up, no guardian name, and after that, she disappeared again. Daniel leaned back in his chair. How does a girl just vanish twice? That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the phone call. Leave her alone. And Mira's words. Some stories are better left untold. Something wasn't right. And now he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Worry. Not for himself, but for her. The next day, Daniel asked for permission to speak with Mira again. At the detention center, she walked in slowly, tired and pale. He picked up the phone behind the glass. Mira, he said gently, I need to understand what's going on. I went to your old orphanage. I talked to a woman who saw you save someone. Mira looked surprised. Her lips tightened. You shouldn't have gone there, she said. I had to. You won't tell me anything. She shook her head. Not because I don't trust you, but because the truth won't help you. Or me. I don't care about winning, Daniel replied. I care about you. Something happened to you. Something big, but you keep running from it. Her hands tightened into fists. I'm not running, she said slowly. I'm protecting. Protecting who? Silence. Mira, do you know who called me? The man who told me to leave you alone? Her eyes filled with fear, but only for a second. Then she said quietly, Yes. Daniel leaned forward. Who is he? Mira shook her head. You don't want to know him. Later that evening, Daniel got a new message on his office phone. It was a deep voice again. This time colder. You're digging in the wrong dirt, lawyer. Let the girl go, or we'll bury the truth. Daniel saved the message and sat in silence. This wasn't just a sad case anymore. This was danger. Real danger. The next day, he asked Claire to run a voice match. She sent it to a contact in law enforcement. An hour later, she came back pale. That voice? She said. It belongs to Marcus Drell. Powerful businessman. Known for charity work. Untouchable. Daniel stood up. What's his connection to Mira? Claire shrugged. No idea. But guess what? He's also listed as a donor. To Haven. Hill Orphanage. The same one that burned. Daniel felt the pieces shifting in his head. Mira wasn't just hiding from her past. She was hiding from someone in her past. And now, that past was watching him. Daniel knew one thing clearly now. This was not just a theft case. This was a cover-up. Maybe even a crime someone wanted buried forever. And Mira, she was the only one who had survived it. He opened her file again and whispered. To himself, she's not the victim of a mistake. She's the survivor of something evil. Just then, he saw something small he hadn't noticed before. Taped to the back of the file folder was a torn photo. It showed two girls. One was clearly Mira. The other was a younger child, maybe 10. On the back of the photo were 3 words written in faded ink. Find her, please. Daniel stared at the photo. Who is she? He asked aloud. Maybe that girl was who Mira was protecting. Daniel sat at his desk holding the photo in his hands. 2 girls. One was Mira, the other, a mystery. A younger girl with a soft smile and scared eyes. On the back, find her, please. Daniel felt it in his gut. This girl was important. This was who Mira was protecting. He picked up the phone and called Claire. I need you to scan this photo, he said. Run a face search on the second girl. Try orphanage records, missing persons, school databases, anything. Claire hesitated. That could take hours, maybe days, then start now. Later that evening, Daniel couldn't sit still. He went back to the detention center to see Mira. She looked even thinner now, like sleep hadn't touched her in days. He sat across the glass, picked up the phone, and didn't waste time. I found the photo, he said. Mira froze. I know she means something to you. Who is she? Mira didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, Her name is Lacey. She was the only person I had after the fire. Daniel leaned forward. Is she alive? I don't know. Why did you write, find her, on the photo? Mira looked down. Because someone took her. Daniel's heart sank. Who? Mira looked up slowly. The same man who called you. Marcus Drell. Daniel left the center with a sick feeling in his chest. This wasn't just about Mira anymore. This was about a missing girl, a powerful man, and a past Mira had been forced to carry alone. That night, Claire called back. I found something, she said. A girl named Lacey. Same face, same age. She was reported missing 5 years ago. But the report was deleted from public records. Deleted? Only police or someone with high access could do that. Daniel clenched his jaw. That means someone didn't want her found. Claire continued. But here's the strange part. I found a second match. Same face, different name. She's working night shifts at a diner outside the city. Daniel's eyes widened. That could be her. I thought so too. So I called the diner. They said she goes by Lacey M. Daniel grabbed his keys. I'm going to find her. At 9:30 p.m., Daniel drove to a small diner off the highway. The sign flickered and the windows were foggy with heat. He stepped inside. The place smelled like coffee and tired dreams. Behind the counter, a girl in her late teens poured coffee for a trucker. Her hair was tied back. Her face looked older than her years. Daniel walked up to the counter. Lacey? He asked softly. She froze, then slowly turned. Her eyes met his. Same as in the photo. Yes, she said quietly. My name is Daniel. I'm Mira Lane's lawyer. The coffee cup in her hand slipped and shattered. Daniel helped clean the broken pieces. She's alive? Lacey whispered. Yes, she's being held in court. She's in trouble. But she's trying to protect you. Lacey sat down, breathing fast. She shouldn't have come back, she said. He'll find her. Marcus Drell? Lacey nodded. He took me in after the fire, said he was helping, but he wasn't. He made me clean his house, watch things, hide secrets. Daniel leaned in. What kind of secrets? She looked around the diner, scared. I can't say here. Come with me, I'll protect you. I can't, she said. I have no ID, no papers, nothing. Daniel paused. I can get you help, but you have to tell me everything for Mira. Lacey's eyes filled with tears. She never gave up on me, she whispered. Even when we were kids, she used to sing to me at night. She was more like a mother than a sister. Daniel saw it now. Mira wasn't just protecting a girl, she was protecting the only family she had left. Back in the city, Daniel met Claire. He told her everything. We have a witness now, he said. If Lacey testifies, Mira's charges can be dropped. But we have to move fast. Claire looked nervous. You think Drell will come after you? Daniel nodded. He already is. That night, Lacey stayed at Daniel's apartment with security. Outside, she told him the whole story, how Marcus Drell would take girls from the orphanage, promise safety, then use them for quiet work, cleaning, hiding documents, running messages. He didn't hit us, Lacey said. He scared us. With money, with power, with silence. Daniel recorded her words. It was enough to open an investigation, maybe even enough to bring Marcus Drell down. The next morning, Daniel returned to the courtroom. Mira stood in her same gray clothes, looking calm as ever. He stood beside her and whispered, I found Lacey. Her eyes filled with tears for the first time. She's safe? She asked. Daniel smiled. Yes. And she remembers everything. The judge entered. The hearing began. But this time, Mira didn't look like a girl waiting to be judged. She looked like someone who finally had hope. The courtroom was quiet. Mira stood tall beside Daniel, her hands trembling just a little, but her eyes, this time, were strong. She wasn't just a lost girl anymore. She was a survivor, with something to say. The judge looked at Daniel. Do you have any new evidence to present? The city was quiet, too quiet. Daniel stared out the window of his office. Rain tapped against the glass like a ticking clock. Lacey was gone. Just hours after her statement, Claire paced behind him. I checked every camera near the safe house. Nothing. Someone knew how to avoid being seen. Daniel clenched his fists. It's him, he said. Marcus Drell. Claire nodded slowly. He took her. Meanwhile, Mira sat in her cell, hands folded in her lap. She hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Something in her chest felt broken. She could feel it. Something was wrong. When the guard brought her breakfast, she asked, Can I speak to Daniel? He's not here, the guard said. He's out, looking for someone. Mira's heart dropped. Lacey? She whispered. The guard didn't answer. That was enough. Back in the city, Daniel made calls all morning, one to a contact in the police, another to a private investigator, another to the reporter he trusted. "I need help," he told them. A girl's life depends on it, but the silence was heavy. Nobody wanted to touch Drell. Too dangerous, too powerful, too hidden. Even the police whispered behind closed doors. Claire returned with a flash drive. "You need to see this." She plugged it into Daniel's laptop. It was security footage from a building tied to Drell's company. One frame showed Lacey, scared, dragged through a back hallway by two men. Another frame, Drell himself, smiling, calm. Daniel's chest burned. "We have proof now," he said. "But we need to find out where she is." Claire zoomed into the video. "Look at the reflection," she said. "In the glass behind him." Daniel leaned in, a blurry sign on a wall. It said, "Black Ridge." Daniel's eyes widened. Black Ridge. That's the old mansion outside the city. "Didn't they say it was abandoned?" Claire asked. "Exactly," Daniel said. "The perfect place to hide someone." Without waiting, Daniel grabbed his coat and keys. Claire tried to stop him. "You can't go alone." "I won't let him hurt her," he said. "Not again." The road to Black Ridge was dark and twisting. Clouds covered the moon. Trees leaned over the narrow path like they wanted to warn him. But Daniel didn't stop. He drove until the trees cleared, and the mansion appeared. Tall, cold, broken windows like watching eyes. He parked far and walked up the side. No sounds, just wind and leaves. Daniel found a side door, locked. He used a small crowbar to break it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust. He moved slowly, careful not to step too loud. Then, he heard it. A voice, muffled, crying. He followed it. Down a hallway, past a cracked mirror, to a basement door. He opened it. The stairs creaked as he went down. Each step felt heavier. Then he saw her, Lacey, tied to a chair, a bruise on her cheek. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw him. "Daniel!" He ran to her, untied the ropes. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did," he said. Then, a sound behind him, a slow clap. Marcus Drell stepped from the shadows. Well, well, I didn't expect you to find us so quickly." Daniel stood in front of Lacey. "She's coming with me." Drell laughed. "You think it's that easy?" "You kidnapped her." "No," Drell said. "I protected her. She would have ruined everything. You don't know how many people depend on my silence." Daniel's voice was sharp. "You used girls like they were nothing. You took their lives, their voices. I gave them food, shelter, safety. You gave them fear." Drell stepped closer. "Walk away, Mr. Reed, or this doesn't end well for you." Daniel didn't move. "I'm not walking." Suddenly, flashing. Lights, sirens, voices shouting from above. Drell looked up in shock. Daniel smiled. "I left my phone on in my pocket. Claire tracked it. Police are here." Drell stepped back. "You'll regret this." "No," Daniel said. "You will." Police stormed in. Guns raised. Drell was handcuffed within seconds. Lacey was taken gently by an officer. Daniel followed, limping slightly but smiling. It was over. Back at the courthouse, news spread fast. Marcus Drell was arrested, charged with kidnapping, human trafficking, and assault. Lacey was safe. Her video testimony was shown in court. Daniel returned to Mira's cell. She stood up, eyes wide. "Is she okay?" Daniel smiled. "She's safe. He's in jail." Mira broke down, crying for the first time in years. Not from fear, but from relief. Days later, in the final hearing, the judge looked at Mira. "Miss Lane," he said, "you were accused of theft and resisting arrest. But with the new evidence and testimony, the court believes you were a victim trying to protect another. Your charges are dropped." The courtroom was silent. Then, applause. Tears, smiles, freedom. Outside the courthouse, Mira stepped into the sun. Daniel and Lacey stood beside her. She looked around slowly, like the world was finally real again. "What, now?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "Now, you live." The city woke up to chaos. News headlines exploded on every screen. Wealthy businessman Marcus Drell arrested in human trafficking case. Teen survivor speaks out against hidden abuse ring. Unknown lawyer saves 2 girls, exposes shocking truth. Daniel watched it all from his apartment, tired but finally smiling. Claire handed him a coffee. "You did it," she said. "No," Daniel replied. "We did." Meanwhile, Mira stood by a window in the small shelter where she and Lacey were staying. She looked out at the street. People were walking, smiling, living normal lives. It felt strange. For the first time in years, no one was chasing her. She turned to Lacey, who was watching TV. "That's us," Lacey whispered. On the screen was a blurry picture of the 2 girls, walking out of court with Daniel. "We're free now," Mira said. Lacey nodded, but her voice was soft. "Yeah, but are we really okay?" Mira didn't answer, because the truth was, they were free, but not healed. Not yet. At the district attorney's office, chaos had begun. Daniel's evidence opened more than just Drell's case. It led to 3 other homes, 2 other wealthy donors, 1 retired judge. All were being investigated. Some officials resigned, some denied everything. But the truth had already gone public, and it wasn't going away. Daniel was called to speak at a press conference. He stood behind a podium with flashing cameras and microphones everywhere. He took a deep breath. "I'm not a hero," he began. "I'm just someone who listened." He paused. Mira Lane was called a thief, but no one asked why she was stealing. No one looked past her record to see her pain. He looked directly into the cameras. There are thousands of girls like Mira, and most of them are still silent, still trapped. If we really care about justice, we have to listen. The crowd went quiet. Then slowly they clapped. After the conference, a reporter approached Daniel. "You're becoming a symbol," she said. "People are calling you the defender of the voiceless." Daniel laughed. "I'm just a tired lawyer." "But what you did, it's rare." "I didn't plan this," he replied. "I just couldn't walk away." Later that day, Daniel visited Mira and Lacey. They were sitting at a small kitchen table eating soup. He smiled when he saw them. "You 2 doing okay?" Mira nodded. "Getting there." Lacey looked up. "Is it really over?" Daniel sat down. "Drell will go to trial. The evidence is strong. He's not getting out." Mira looked away. "And the others?" Daniel hesitated. "We're still fighting. Claire's helping build more cases." Mira bit her lip. "There are more girls, aren't there?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, and they need someone to speak for them, just like you 2. That night, Mira opened a notebook. She began to write, her story, her pain, her hope, page after page. It wasn't easy, but it was real. The next morning, her story went live online. "I wasn't a thief, I was trying to escape," by Mira Lane. Within hours, thousands of people shared it. Some cried, some apologized, some said it gave them courage to speak too. Daniel got a call from a woman in another state. She said, "My daughter went through the same thing." I never believed her. But after reading Mira's words, I called her. I told her I believe her now. Daniel didn't know what to say. He just said, "Thank you." Meanwhile, Drell sat in a cold jail cell. He was no longer smiling. News of Mira's story reached him too. His lawyers were trying to make deals, but the public didn't want deals. They wanted justice, and this time, they were watching. 1 week later, Daniel was invited to speak at a youth center. He brought Mira and Lacey with him. At first, Mira was quiet. Then a little girl raised her hand and asked, "Were you scared?" Mira smiled gently. "Every single day," she said. "But then I met someone who didn't walk away." She looked at Daniel, "And that gave me strength." The little girl nodded. "I want to be brave like you." Mira's eyes filled with tears. "You already are." As they left, Daniel looked at Mira and Lacey. "You two changed everything." Mira shook her head. "No, you believed us. That changed everything." That night, Daniel sat in his car outside his apartment. He checked his phone. One last message came in. "You saved my sister. Thank you for not staying silent." Daniel closed his eyes and smiled. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from listening. The courtroom was full. People stood shoulder to shoulder, reporters, students, activists, and quiet citizens who had never been to court before. They weren't just there to watch Marcus Drell's trial, they came to witness a turning point. And it all started with a girl named Mira Lane. Daniel sat at the front of the courtroom. Next to him sat Mira and Lacey. Mira wore a plain white dress. Her hair was tied back. Her eyes were calm, but strong. Lacey held her hand tightly. Drell was led in wearing a gray prison jumpsuit. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked small, scared, and the cameras didn't miss it. The judge entered. Court is now in session. One by one, the witnesses were called. First, a police officer who raided the mansion. Next, a former employee who worked for Drell's company and had seen girls being moved late at night. Then, Mira. The courtroom fell silent. She stood, walked. Slowly to the witness stand, Daniel watched closely. He knew this was the moment everything would change. Mira raised her right hand and took the oath. Then she looked at the jury. "My name is Mira Lane. I was taken when I was 15. I was promised work. But instead, I was locked up." She paused. "They made us clean, smile, lie. If we cried, they punished us. If we ran, they hurt us." The courtroom held its breath. I wasn't the only one. There were other girls, younger than me. Some are still missing. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I was called a thief. I was called a liar. But all I ever wanted was to be free. She looked straight at Drell. "You took our voices. But now, I'm taking them back." The room exploded in emotion. Some people cried. Others clapped softly. The judge banged his gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" But the moment was already alive. After her testimony, Mira walked back to her seat. Daniel touched her shoulder gently. "You were powerful," he whispered. Mira gave a small smile. "I just told the truth." Drell's lawyers tried to fight back. They said the girls were lying, that they came willingly, that they were runaways. But the jury had heard too much, and the world was watching. A video from one of the raids was shown, girls in small rooms, locked doors, no windows. One voice in the background kept repeating, "Please help us." People in the courtroom turned their faces away. Some couldn't hold their tears. Even the judge's face looked heavy. When the final arguments ended, the jury was sent out. The wait began. 1 hour, 2, then 3. Finally, the jury returned. The room stood as the foreman handed the paper to the judge. The judge looked at it carefully. Then he cleared his throat. On the charge of human trafficking, guilty. On the charge of kidnapping, guilty. On the charge of abuse, guilty. Every word hit like thunder. Marcus Drell's face dropped. He tried to speak, but the judge stopped him. "You will remain in custody until sentencing. This court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, the street was packed. Reporters shouted questions. People held signs that read, "Justice for the lost." "Girls!" Mira spoke. "We heard her. One voice. Big change." Daniel stepped out first, shielding Mira and Lacey from the flashing lights. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Mira! How do you feel?" She paused, then spoke clearly. "Relieved. But it's not just about me. This is for every girl who was never heard." And that's when the applause started. Not just from the crowd, but from the whole city. The story hit national news. TV anchors called Mira a symbol of courage. Daniel was called the people's lawyer. Lacey was called a survivor with a heart of gold. But behind all the noise, Mira stayed quiet, because she knew the fight was not over. A week later, Mira was invited to speak at a national youth summit. She stood on a big stage. Thousands of people in the audience. She held the microphone tightly. "I was a lost girl," she said. "I was silent for years. I thought no one would care." She looked out at the crowd, but someone did. And because of that, I'm here, and I'm not scared anymore. She raised her hand slowly. If you're scared, if you've been hurt, if you think no one will listen, this is me saying, I believe you. The entire room stood and clapped. Some cried, some shouted her name. "Mira! Mira! Mira!" Back at home, Daniel watched it all on TV. Claire sat beside him, smiling. "You were right to believe in her," she said. "No," Daniel replied. "She just needed a chance." Claire nodded. "What now?" Daniel leaned back, thinking. Now, we help more voices rise. In the weeks that followed, Daniel opened a small legal center with Claire, the Mira Project. Its mission was simple: to listen, to protect, to fight. Girls came from all over. Some were scared, some were silent. But they found hope because of one girl who found her voice. And somewhere in the city, Mira sat by her window, writing her second story. Her words were softer now, but strong, because now the world was listening. It was a quiet night. Daniel sat alone in his office at the new legal center, the Mira Project. Papers were stacked high, phone calls waiting, and emails blinking on the screen. But Daniel wasn't tired. He felt something different now. Purpose. He looked at a framed photo on his desk. It showed Mira and Lacey smiling in front of the courthouse. He smiled back. Outside, the city lights glowed. People walked freely, laughed, lived, but somewhere in that same city, someone was still scared, still trapped, still waiting for someone to listen, and that's why Daniel couldn't stop. Justice never sleeps. Mira had started school again. She sat in the back of her class, notebook in hand, always writing. At first, some students stared at her, whispered, but Mira didn't let it bother her. She had survived far worse than gossip. One afternoon, her teacher gave her an assignment. Write a speech that could change the world. Mira already had the words in her heart. That weekend, she stood on stage again, this time in her school auditorium. Her voice was calm. "When I was taken, I thought my life was over. I was just a girl with no money, no voice, no one." She paused. "But then someone believed in me, and that changed everything." She looked around. "There are more girls out there, like me, waiting, scared. If I can help even one, then I know I didn't survive for nothing." Silence, then standing applause. Even her teacher wiped away tears. Meanwhile, Lacey had found her dream. She wanted to be a counselor for girls like her. She started training with a local support center, learning how to talk, listen, and help others heal. One day, a young girl came in. She was barely 12. She didn't speak at first, but Lacey sat next to her, held her hand, and whispered, "I was scared too, but you're not alone anymore." The girl began to cry, and just like that, another voice was heard. Drell was sentenced to life in prison. The court gave its final judgment. The judge said, "Your actions destroyed lives, and now you will face the weight of your crimes." Drell didn't speak. He didn't smile. His power was gone, and Mira didn't attend the final hearing. She said she didn't need to. She had already won. One evening, Daniel received a letter. No name. No return address. Inside was a small note. "I'm safe now, because I heard Mira's story. Thank you for helping her speak. Now I'm ready to speak too." Daniel placed the letter in his drawer, next to many others like it, each one a reminder that every voice mattered. Claire knocked on his door. "You should take a break," she said. Daniel chuckled. "Justice doesn't sleep. But even warriors need rest." He looked at her and smiled. "Maybe just one cup of coffee." At a public event, Mira was honored with an award. The mayor stood next to her and said, "Mira Lane reminded us that justice is not just in laws, but in listening." Mira held the award but said, "This is not mine alone. It belongs to Lacey, to Daniel, to every girl who lived through pain and still stood tall." She raised the trophy for all the unheard voices. Months later, Daniel got a call from another city. A lawyer asked for help starting a Mira project there. Then another call, then another. The movement had begun. From one broken case came a wave of change, and it all began with a girl they once called just another case. 1 year later, Mira stood outside the court building where it all started. She looked up at the tall stone walls. She took a deep breath and walked inside. Not as a victim, not even as a witness, but as a mentor. She was there to help another girl, another voice. And this time she would be the one to say, "I believe you." Back at his desk, Daniel wrote something in his journal. She was never just another case. She was a fire waiting to be lit, and now she lights the way for others. He closed the book, looked at the clock, midnight, but he wasn't done yet, because somewhere another voice still needed to be heard.